It's the Sports Peninsula podcast coming up. We continue our coverage of the 2024 NFL Draft prospects leading up to the April 25th first round start here in Detroit, Michigan. In this episode, we'll look at the safety position. This class is solid with plenty of day 2 and day 3 value this year. Is there any day 1 talent on the board? We'll give our thoughts and break down the top prospects next. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Drzinski Drew, and we're going to be talking about the safeties in this 2024 NFL Draft prospect class. And we're really excited about it. It's going to be in Detroit, April 25th through the 27th. It's going to be awesome. I'm anticipating attendance records falling. And Coach Shield of the Marine City Mariners, Andy Shields, joining us. And I know, Coach, you're looking forward to that, too.
Absolutely. Certainly looking forward to taking part in that. My son and I are going to be making the trek down, probably staying with his aunt, my sister, who is a proud resident of the city of Detroit, right just down the street from Hitsville, USA. So, I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and maybe we can even bring some content. That's something we can talk about then, perhaps, in the future. But, looking forward to this one because, Drew, I think we're talking about a position that we are going to be selecting from in this draft. I don't know if that's day one. I don't think it has to be day one. I think we have some depth in here. There's some very good football players, certainly some ones that are more Detroit Lion-esque, so to speak, some more that are more controlled fury, MCDC, kneecap guys, and guys that Coach Brad Holmes and his great staff have ID'd as those type of fits. So I think we're going to be talking about a couple of those guys here in a few.
Yeah, from a Lions perspective, before we jump into it, Kirby Joseph has entrenched himself as a starter. Melifonwu certainly stepped up big time in the second half of that season and earned the other spot. And they've released Tracy Walker, who had a great career in Detroit. And hell of a comeback from Achilles surgery and had his moments last year for sure, but ultimately was a healthy scratch come playoff time. So at that point, the starters are in place. I agree they need depth. Now you've got a Brian Branch who can play back there, although I think he's better suited to be more of that nickel corner, nickel back type guy, and he's outstanding in that capacity, by the way. Will they sign Gardner Johnson back? Don't know. That could impact where they go. But I would say as it stands now, they're definitely going to look at safety, but I would agree not on day one. And I'm not sure, and we're going to get into that. I'm not sure who might be able to jump into day one, but I think versatility is going to play a big part in that. But I'm really excited to talk about this class as always, Coach, any draft classes, but the safety position is rather, it's evolving in the NFL. It's not what it used to be. It's not just straight up free safety, strong safety, that you have to be more dynamic than that. And that's just how defenses are. It's a passing league now versus a running league. And, let's just jump into it now, Coach. Let's get to the first prospects. This is who we're going to be looking at here. And let's talk about who some of the players you like.
Well, like you said, Tracy Walker is no longer a Lion. He was a safety, and there's going to be some others that may not be back. Could one of these 20 young men be one of those players? Time will tell, and there's a very good chance that it could be like a Mark Perry from TCU, real exceptional player that's played a lot of football, was a big part of that championship chase that they had a year ago in 2022. Dejon Anthony, high caliber prospects get recruited to play football by Lane Kiffin down in Ole Miss. And Dejon Anthony was one of those. And did he project? He was great. He was great down there in Oxford, Mississippi. Sion Vaki out of Utah. This is a guy that this is somebody that we have ranked at 18, but could very well be a guy that's selected as early as day 2. Evan Williams from Oregon, real intriguing prospect, guy that could really climb the board too. Talented athlete. Jalen Simpson from Auburn, our 16th ranked safety. We are going to be dark horse ranking him by Mr. Drzinski. You are the guy that selected him. And Jalen Simpson, we're going to be hearing about it a little bit more here soon. Our 15th prospect, Kaiton Oladapo from Oregon State, is a guy that we're going to be talking about. these are individuals that could be special team stalwarts, let alone guys that contribute at safety in a rotation. Damani Richardson from Texas A&M, he's something that they've been talking about for years now in the NFL draft. Very, very well thought of young man down in College Station, Texas. Kenny Logan Jr., part of the revival that is the Kansas Jayhawk football program. He's a top 15 safety in this draft. Jalen Green from Mississippi State, another high caliber athlete, long, athletic, physical, great athlete that's going to be getting a chance to play NFL football. Malik Mustafa is an absolute physical dynamo. And this is a guy that is a workout warrior. You're going to be talking about him in a little bit here, Drew. Josh Proctor out of The Ohio State University, top 10 safety in this draft. James Williams is a very unique and intriguing guy because of his size. We talked about in a few episode, in the wide receiver episode, about Johnny Wilson Jr. for Florida State. Well, a little bit further south, we have a defensive version of Johnny Wilson Jr. in the form of James Williams down at the U, at the University of Miami, one of two Hurricane safeties we're going to be talking about. Bo Braid out of Maryland, outstanding Big Ten product. One of Coach Loxley's great defensive players, big part of the success over there, real big name within the Big Ten Conference, going to be playing NFL football. Cole Bishop, another player we're going to be talking about as a dark horse, great player out of the University of Utah. Tyke Smith is as prolific as a safety as we will speak of today, Drew. This guy was a star at two different universities and a dynamite player, a guy that is also seen as a Dan Campbell type fit. Jaden Hicks out of Washington State, Wazoo, big, tall safety prospect. Going to be talking about him, so along with Javon Bullard out of Georgia, Kalen Bullock out of USC. Really excited to talk about him. Tyler Newbin out of Minnesota. He's a row the boat gopher, and he's a dynamite prospect. Just considered one of the best defensive players in the University of Minnesota history. And leading out, and the guy that we're going to be talking about here next is our number one safety out of the University of Miami, and that's Mr. Cameron Kitchens.
Yeah, no, great list, Coach. And let's jump right into it. Cameron Kitchens out of the U. Talk about him.
Well, Drew, like we said, he is the number one safety prospect on our board. He is a 5'11", 206-pounder out of the University of Miami. He's a 2022 All-American and two-time All-ACC player and started as a true freshman. So he's a Miami native. He's a local. This is the pipeline that made that program what it's known in college football lore, is being able to develop this great homegrown talent. South Florida is an absolute gold mine for football players, and Cameron Kitchens definitely carries on that legacy. 59 tackles, 12 pass breakups, and 6 picks in 2022. Has 159 career tackles, 26 career pass breakups, and 11 career interceptions, which is a very high number of interceptions for a guy that's only a junior. Cameron Kitchens, our number one overall prospect at the safety position, Drew.
Yeah, lots to like about Cameron Kitchens, Coach, and this is one of the guys that I think is in the conversation on day one. There's no doubt about that. And let's talk about what else you like about him.
What number does he wear, Drew?
24.
Was there a real good center fielder that wore that number?
Back in the day, yeah, I think there was a say hey kid.
Yeah, by the name of Willie Mays, and this guy plays free safety very much like a Willie Mays, Drew. He is a ball tracking dynamo, best ball tracker in the draft. He possesses the best skill at it. He is at the peak of the defense. He makes it very difficult to run over the top of. He's amazing depth safety. Really deep range, which is going to make him enticing. And I think, we see, it kind of ebb and flow. There's some that say he's a day one guy, and there's some that say he's early day two. But he has great instincts and really anticipates and triggers very quickly. And that's what makes him so hard to get beat deep. And that's what he can also get the angle on. He's very adept at getting an angle on the deep route, which helps him play the ball rather than just play the actual receiver. He's a big hitter. He's got that combo in him too. He's not just a deep side safety. He's a guy that comes up and closes and makes big hits and creates fumbles and turnovers. He's a true ball hawk. Like I said, he's an absolutely outstanding ball tracker. Talked about that with his deep safety capability. He's not going to be out physical in coverage. He's going to be able to take on guys like Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce and George Kittle and these bigger tight ends and body them and defend them. He can do that. He's not just going to be a ball playing safety in that regard. It's not as much of a mismatch. He's got great physicality. He's a very productive tackler, which is great to see. Your safeties need to really help in tackling on the run and helping set edges and take care of plays that are coming off onto the perimeter and in space. He can do all of that. Very fluid, competitive, deep coverage guy, as stated before. Drew, lots to like about Cameron Kitchens as one of your premier safeties on your roster and then hopefully the league.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about some issues with his game, but what I like about Kitchens is he's kind of a jack of all trades, but he's very good at everything. He's not just good at or okay at everything, but not great. He's very good at everything, but he's got some issues to maybe correct to help his draft stats get to day one. What did you see, Coach?
Well, in the NFL, you have the route combinations and the way they're run and the way they are hit and the way they're timed and almost choreographed, so to speak, is so dynamic. I mean, these are the pros doing it. And young safeties in general, regardless how good they are in the end of their career, can struggle when you see these dynamic route combos and guessing or getting set off balance or kind of become a ghost out there because you're not processing quick enough. These are some things that we wonder if Cameron Kitchens will struggle with a little bit. He's going to get real aggressive, and he's going to counter that with aggressive play. So if that's going to, in the passing game, maybe yield some pass interference and some holding, and it's going to lead to some whiffs and missed tackles in the run game, and even perhaps in the pass game as well too. So, even though he's a very productive, strong tackler, a lot of great video of him tracking the hip and staying on his feet in an open fields fashion and just and hitting and striking right through his angle as a tackler. He's a very good tackler, but he's one that could also miss a little bit because of aggression. He needs to assert himself and become more confident as a communicator. The safeties and the linebackers, Drew, they got to be great communicators. They got to be verbal. They've got to let the front know what the adjustment is. They've got to communicate changes to the tackles. You play in these loud environments, the defense is going to hear it. They're going to hear that loud noise, especially at home. You've got to be adept at communicating. Cameron Kitchens needs to assert himself that way a little bit more. These are some things that he's got to work on, but in due time they will. And this is going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of opportunities to play at a very, very high level in the NFL. Cameron Kitchens from the University of Miami.
That's an interesting assessment, Coach, and I like that. I mean, to have, you've got confidence in your ability, take the reins, take the lead, take the turnover chain, if you will, if you're from the U.
Quarterback the defense,
absolutely. I agree with your assessment. I'm confident. I think that he'll work through that personally. And I don't know him well, but I mean, it's a hell of a football player, and he does it by example too. So really like Kitchens a lot. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I know as a Detroit fan at 29, the Lions are more in need of a cornerback, but I don't believe, I don't know. Kitchens might be there. I don't know. And I guess it's going to depend, and probably not who they're going to go after, but wow, he's got a hell of a shot at getting me in a day one pick. There's no doubt about that. Great talent, Cameron Kitchens. Let's talk about Kalen Bullock out of USC, University of Southern Cal.
Well, this is a player that, for me, moved into the number 2 slot based off of film. And I've looked across a lot of other boards, and I'm seeing in a lot of mock drafts and a lot of the algorithms too, when we do our own mock drafts, that Kalen Bullock is either the second or the first safety taken. 6', 390-pound junior out of the University of Southern California. He's a Pasadena native, Southern California boy. We moved him up to number 2 from number 3. He was a 3-star recruit coming into the process. Didn't really know if he was a receiver, didn't really know if he was a defensive player. Wound up being a 2-time All-American and 2-time All-Pac-12 player at safety for the Trojan program. 149 career tackles, 24 PBUs, and 9 picks. This is a player that intrigues me at a big time because he is a receiver playing the safety position. He's a receiver with tackling ability. And he's a guy that really knows how to leverage his body, makes very aggressive tackler, and outstanding in coverage. Right there with Kinchins in his deep ball capability. Kalen Bullock, real good football player here, Drew.
Yeah, Kalen Bullock, I love his size. And I'm curious to hear your breakdown because I can see him being a real disturber back there, and definitely with that size, and if he can show that he's got the physical chops to be an absolute stud safety, team leader out there. I mean, this is a guy who, like, to your point, could climb the board even further. But talk about what you really like about him, Coach.
For sure, Drew. And he has shown that coach on the field mentality, that outstanding communication capability that's needed at the safety position to make sure that your corners, your linebackers, and then eventually your edge players and your defensive tackles all are on the same page. He is got a lot of natural and developed skill in that regard. He was recruited as a wide receiver. This is a Division I wide receiver recruit. So he's got exceptional ball skills, high points, and attacks the ball away from his body, makes plays as a result. Very clutch performer, big on third downs. He's an elite processor when the game is on the line. You need to stop Kalen Bullock's type of guy if you want it on the field, if you're the University of Southern California. Great functional athlete, very, very good body control. He's a very effective and good tackler, not dissimilar to Cameron Kitchens, even though Cameron Kitchens may have more of that tackler's body at 5'11", 205, 210, where Kalen Bullock's a little bit longer and rangy at 6'3", 190. He's a very, very good tackler. He's scheme diverse as far as coverage. He can play up in the box. We could even maybe put him as a real long nickel corner. He's a guy that's very, very good and adept at playing on the deep half too. So this is a guy that can really play the different spots that you would ask of a safety. Another very willing contributor and strong contributor on special teams as well. I'm telling you what, Drew, Kalen Bullock is a guy that I might start putting a little bit of a bullseye on if I am Brad Holmes, because I think he sounds like a Dan Campbell type guy to me.
Love the diversity and I mean that positional diversity reminds me of Brian Branch. They're different players, different physical features, but that positional diversity is very key. Lot to like about Kalen Bullock. And I'll be honest with you, Coach. Before we had this breakdown, before we put this together, I wasn't real high on this class, but Bullock is definitely one of these guys that could crack day one. But what does he need to work on to get there?
Well, he's a very, very good athlete, and obviously so. We've talked about that, but he may not be the most dynamic. In regards to like blitzing and those kinds of things, Cameron Kitchens is a lot more astute than Kalen Bullock. The guy that we're going to talk about next, that we actually swapped out at number 2 because he was initially in number 2 and is now in number 3, probably blitzes a little bit better than Kalen Bullock. Some of those dynamic closing speed and burst speed is something that maybe is not the same as a couple of other prospects. He's going to need to adjust his tracking. He's as good of a ball tracker as he is. He's going to have to adjust it because deep ball situations get a lot deeper, a lot faster by a lot taller guys in the NFL. So that's just something that we're going to really need to be able to see him do early in his career, if he's going to play a lot early in his career, or if he's going to need to develop that over time. He also can overcommit a little bit and trigger on run and maybe be a little bit off angle or not quite be able to close and track right straight through the hip and make tackles. Not quite the same as Kinchins, and he misses some from time to time. And he can get caught hanging a little bit. That's what's referred to, what it's referred to, where he stays deep. He doesn't trust his trigger and doesn't kind of get maybe to a spot where he can affect things a little bit more, and kind of doesn't factor in, especially into the run game. If you hang a little too long, you're not quite getting to the point of attack, especially in the run game. And that's something that he's going to have to develop. But you do so at the professional level. His trigger will get quicker, and that likely won't be a long-term weakness.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Kalen Bullock perform at the combine at his pro day. That's for sure. If he can handle adding 15 to 20 pounds on his frame of muscle and still maintain this level of athleticism, man, I'll tell you what, he could be something else. I mean, to be a sure tackler with that frame, to add a little more muscle on that frame, I think that would help a lot. There's a lot to like about Kalen Bullock. There's no question. I would agree with you. I would think he's certainly on the radar already for the Lions, and you never know. You just never know. I don't think this is the position group they're looking at, but that positional diversity can change things very quickly. Much like they're not looking for a tackle per se, but if a tackle could move inside, well, all bets are off at that point.
And with Bullock, there's one more thing about Kalen Bullock, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Is with Kalen Bullock, if he really, I thought we were going to go to the slide. There we go. Yep. With Kalen Bullock, he's a receiver at heart. He's a receiver at heart, and what he may do differently than any of the other prospects, and it was why we bumped him up to 2, was he anticipates so well, and he can read a quarterback. He's looking down the field. He's looking at eyes of a quarterback as a receiver. And he turns that into, himself as a defender. And he's just at the point of, you'll see it from, as you watch film, how many clips that he is able to read and get to the break of a route and start attacking the break out of a route stem. And it's intriguing. It's really intriguing.
That's exciting. That's a very exciting breakdown, Coach. Appreciate that. Let's go to Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota. And Coach, we saw a lot of him here in Big Ten country. Let's talk about him.
Yep. Tyler is the number 3 safety prospect on the SPP safety big board out of the University of Minnesota, a Big Ten product, 6'2", 210-pound senior. So this is a bigger safety. This is a bigger bodied guy. Out of St. Charles, Illinois, he became a 4-star prospect, recruited all over the Big Ten. 4-time academic all Big Ten selection. We're talking about a bright young man. 3-time all Big Ten selection and a 2-time All-American. Very dedicated, prolific football player. Kind of the Blake Corum of the safety prospects. If you think about it, Drew, very prolific, long playing career, very, very decorated. 207 career tackles, 24 career pass breakups, and then a very impressive 13 career interceptions. So this guy's gotten to a lot of footballs. By and large, you see a lot of draft prognosticators saying this is the number 2 safety prospect, and in some cases, the number 1 safety prospect in the safety class. We have him at 3, but Tyler Nubin, no matter what, is a premier safety prospect.
Yeah, you put that weight on Bullock, and now we're really talking something here. And Nubin's got that, and being 6'2", he's got very good size, like you said. Let's talk about it. He's definitely a strong guy.
Oh, big, strong safety frame. And for the box, he's ready to go. You just kind of said it. I mean, we're a Caden Bullock. That might be something that has to be taken into consideration, as we need to see him get a little bit stronger and a little bit bigger. Tyler Nubin already kind of has that and can only enhance it. He's got a big, strong safety frame for a safety. He can really play up. He can play in the box or the deep end. He's alignment and scheme versatile. He's very good at being able to play at either spot. So he's got position versatility there. He's a great closer. Got great straight line speed. So if he's on the deep half, he can factor into the run game. He gets up into the mix, and at 6'2", 210, he can really lay the boom. He's a frontliner type. He's not afraid of intense competition. He likes to be at the front of the list. He likes to be at the front of the fight. He's a guy that's right in there. He's a hustler. He wants to be a leader out there when things get tough. He wants to be a leader out there when you got a tough matchup. Type of football player you want on the field. Very fluid, moving, and strong ball tracker. Very strong and effective tackler. Probably of the three that prospects we've talked about all, so far, he might be the strongest available tackler in that regard. High level communicator and processor, plays a lot of football, very confident in himself, very anticipatory player. Tyler Nubin, I also believe, has kind of been listed as one of these players that would really be fit a Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes regime type of Detroit Lion. And this is a guy that I wouldn't be surprised. You might be able to put the bullseye on this one as a potential future Detroit Lion.
I see a lot of traits in similar size, although Tracy Walker's 6'3", I believe, but similar to that. And that's a good football player right there, even though the Lions just released him. But
absolutely.
That's the kind of guy. And that was a 3rd round pick as well, I believe. So, and I don't believe that Tyler Nubin is not going in the 3rd round. Tyler Nubin has 1st round day 1 talent, but what a value he would be in day 2 for any team. Love a lot about his game. What can he work on to get better, Coach?
Well, he plays very fast. I mean, it's not about playing fast, because he certainly does that, but he's not necessarily the most explosive guy. And you can see that on film. For me, that's what kind of made me swap him out with Caden Bullock, is the athletic burst and ability. And it's a passer's game. You need to be able to redirect and be pretty dynamic. And he might not quite be there just as well. He's very physical in man coverage, very physical, which, yes, okay, that's great. We want physicality. That also is going to get some PIs, flags thrown your way. And that's something that I think could become an issue for Tyler Nubin at times in his career, or especially early on. He's still guilty of whiffing and missing some tackles, just like Kinchins, just like Bullock, just like probably every safety on this board. But he as hard as he comes up, sometimes he misses the angle, maybe lowers his head a little bit, and he misses some. Going to need to work on his tackling proficiency a little bit more. And he's gotten turned around in deep coverage a couple of times, which, that's not a good thing. That means the top's off the defense. And if the top's off the defense, somebody's probably leaking over the top of it. So on the offensive side. So that's something you cannot have happen as a safety. But Tyler Nubin's, just all the things that you've ever seen on, he's been featured on the Big Tent Network, and how hard of a worker he is, and what a great guy he has been around the program in the Twin Cities, in the University of Minnesota. These are things that he will work to correct and really be kind of a glue guy. A lot to like about Tyler Nubin, Drew. Very intriguing, impressive safety. And this is a guy that would look great in Honolulu blue and silver.
Yeah, and certainly we're familiar with PJ Fleck, former Western Michigan University coach, and turned that program into a Cotton Bowl participant back in the 2016 season. Love that, rowing the boat in Minnesota. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about him, absolutely, and I would agree absolutely with you. The concern getting turned around deep coverage, that would be a concern. Just another guy. I believe every one of the safeties would benefit from having a really strong combine and pro day, because it's just because there's dynamic corners out there, and there's other skill position players that are overshadowing a lot of positions, and safety was like that right at that next level. So if you can show your versatility and show how athletic you really are, of course there's tape. But when you can have those workouts are there for a reason. They do impress people, and it does show you what kind of an athlete you are. But yeah, I really like Tyler Nubin a lot, and like you said, he's well grounded, definitely a leader. So a lot to like there. Let's talk about the number 4 prospect, coach, out of the University of Georgia.
And Drew, this is another player that has on some boards is considered the top safety in the class.
Mm-hmm.
When you have 4 this close to each other, it's really, really intriguing to see. But yeah, Javon Bullard from the University of Georgia, 5'10", 197-pound junior. He's one of 2 safeties we're going to be talking about in the top 6 from the University of Georgia. He's the number 4 overall prospect at safety on the SPP big board. From Milledgeville, Georgia, he's a native of the state, all SEC selection. And he was the 2023 college football, the CFP national championship game defensive MVP. This guy really showed out in that game. 114 career tackles, 12 career pass breakups, 4 picks. What's really impressive about this year to me, Drew, is when he was targeted, the quarterback rating was 36.6, and that's this year. So he played very, very well this year, and he causes a lot of incompletions. And incompletions sometimes are only a statistic in of themselves. What's lost on an incompletion is how many good things that does for a defense, Drew. And that's an analytical fact. And this guy causes incompletions. This guy deserves to play in the NFL.
Yes, and like you had mentioned in previous episodes, it's very tough to get on the field when you're at the University of Georgia, and this guy is one of the elites. So let's talk about what else he does well, Coach.
Really instinctive and reads well. That's very apparent on film. His eyes and head lean. I mean, he looks like a hawk. He is reading and assessing at all times, and he's very anticipatory on a quarterback's read. So that's he can really whisper the quarterback, just very much like Mr. Bullock out of USC. Great change of direction and fluid athlete, and you can see it. I mean, he has really worked on that and speed and agility. He's a very technical, fluid mover in both capacities. He doesn't look mechanical, even though his mechanics are nearly flawless. He's position versatile. He can play some zone corner too. So that's an intriguing thing about Javon Bullard, is his ability to even actually slide and become a corner in some zone concepts. Very good at press coverage. He'll get up in there, and he's got the great technique to get under your chin and do his thing there. He's very smooth and effective in underneath coverage as well, getting underneath slants, getting underneath little sort of the pick type things that have become so hard to defend at the NFL. Javon Bullard's got an aptitude for defending that stuff. So, I mean, just another great safety prospect, and a guy that Drew could be this first safety taken. That's
what's so crazy about this class. There's some rock solid top guys like we've been talking about. We're going to talk about some more, but they're very similar in terms of a lot of them in terms of their skill sets, and they've all distinguished themselves as very good football players, but nobody's taken that next step to say, I'm that guy. So it's wide open. That's why the combine and the pro is going to be so important for the safeties. So what can Bullard work on to really excel going into the draft, Coach?
Well, he's a sub 6 foot safety. And when you're not quite 6 feet tall, size at the safety position, because especially what you're tasked at being on the deep end, it's not so critical underneath, because you can jump routes and you're going to disturb passing lanes and passing windows. You don't have to be 6'3" to do that, or 6'1" to do that. But on the deep end, if you're playing the deep side safety or playing zone corner, and there's a high point situation or what becomes a contested situation, multiple players in offense and defense looking to engage the football, the shorter guy doesn't always win that battle. So that's a concern. That is a concern. Needs to get a little stronger. And need to be stronger to be an effective tackler as a safety in the NFL. And he can get a little too conservative too on the back end. He can hang a little too long and stay and assess. He does that so well, Drew, that maybe sometimes he can't get out of it. And he's reading and assessing just a little too long, and he stays backed out and kind of is not really involved at times. And that's something he's going to have to watch. That's not something that coaches want to see. They want to see you triggering in one way, shape, or form. And he has been susceptible to the deep ball. It comes right back to his size and some of his, length concerns. Big 6'3", 6'4" guys are going to pluck the ball over the top of him. Think of a Johnny Wilson Jr., him having to try to defend him on a post. It's going to be a very tough cover for a guy like Javon Bullard at his size. And the NFL is loaded with tall, fast, athletic, down the field passing threats.
Yeah, and
receiving threats. Sorry.
Yep, and he certainly can't we're playing platform shoes, so we know that. But I think his football IQ is so high. I believe he just needs to show and prove that he can counter that, and he's done so in many respects, and you articulate that well. This is just one of the other aspects. He's just going to have to show that he's able to overcome that and compensate per se. And I think it's more about trusting your instincts, because his game for the most part says he has good high football IQ, good instincts. So maybe it's just a matter of trust your instincts. And if the play calls for you to be here, then be there. Don't try to overthink it. Just be where you need to be, and trust your teammates. Trust your own instinct, but trust your teammates too. But a lot to like about Bullard. And oh yeah, absolutely. Would look good in any uniform, and especially in Detroit here. We would love him in Honolulu blue and silver. But very, very intriguing prospect. Let's talk about the number 5 guy. Another Georgia product, Coach.
Another Georgia product, and probably the most prolific safety in the class in regards to what he's done in his career. Like Drew, you said, the number 5 safety prospect on the SPP draft big board for safeties. Tyke Smith out of the University of Georgia, 5'9", 206-pound senior. Out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Likely played some football against Marvin Harrison Jr. In his career. Transferred from West Virginia. So he started off with the Mountaineers. And at West Virginia, he was an All-American, an All-Big 12 selection, and a Jim Thorpe Award finalist. So he was very, very, very well decorated prior to his time at the University of Georgia. He transferred down to Athens, great place to be in the modern rules of college football. Why not? They're a big-time winner, right? Well, he did, and he was succeeded there. He was All-SEC and an All-American at Georgia. 207 career tackles, 16 career pass breakups, 8 career INTs. He has 4 interceptions with a 52.7. That's not a 52.7 QBR when targeted in 2023. He had a great senior campaign. This is a guy that jumped the board, Drew, based on how fast he plays. And he is all over the place. Aggressive player, really intrigued by Tyke Smith.
And at that weight, that's awesome. And he's going to need to be being 5'9". That's definitely a tough thing there. But with the weight and the speed, that cures a lot of what ails you, right, Coach? So let's talk about what else he brings to the table.
Well, he's got a player comparison. We can kind of have a player comparison for him. And I saw this in multiple things that we looked at, watched him on film, and absolutely agree with it. I absolutely agree that he's a very similar to an Antoine Winfield Jr. Very similar football player to that. Totally agree. Tough physical tackler, comes up there and he means it. He loves to come up and hit. A little 5'9", 206-pounder, he doesn't tackle that way. He means it when he tackles. He's a read and react player. He's got impressive instincts. He can assess and trigger really, really well. He's got great awareness in the red zone. He's a guy that he will be somebody that probably develops throughout his rookie contract as a guy that they want in the red zone. And that gets you multiple contracts in the NFL. Even if you're very basic and of a lot of other analytics, if you're outstanding in the red zone, you're going to find a place to be on the field. But yeah, think Antoine Winfield Jr. when you're thinking Tyke Smith.
And when I hear that, I think early day 2, even possible late day 1, if he can show that height is not an issue, that physicality would bring him right up into that conversation. What else does he need to work on, Coach?
Well, he's going to have to refine his technique as a tackler. I mean, he throws himself in there like a elementary school bully. He fires his body and he hammers a lot of body shots, and not necessarily almost the most square. He's a big hitter. I mean, he can drive. He can wrap and fire guns and drive too. He's shown some good technique, but he's going to have to refine himself a little bit, because at 5'9", 206, you can't play bully ball like that in the NFL. He's going to need to improve his route recognition, especially in the deep half. I'm not so sure we see a lot of deep half in Tyke Smith. He's 5'9", 206. I think this is your nickel type guy. or a dime type guy. He's going to be somebody that you can do some diverse things with your pass coverage. He's more of a box player. I think this is something that you're going to see more in the box and also in the red zone. So in that kind of area. Not ideal length for the safety position, as stated before, and as just kind of present. He's 5'9". You know, you would like to see 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2". You get into the 6'3s, that's awesome. But he's rather short for a safety, and he's going to struggle to make plays on the ball. When the ball's thrown up in the air, you know, we said how great he is in the red zone. Probably not the guy that's going to press the fade. Probably not the guy that's going to press the fade at 5'9". But you know, still way more intriguing qualities for Tyke Smith. He is a sub-package starter, maybe as a rookie.
Yeah, and I think if the right situation comes up, he's anywhere from an early to mid day 2 second round guy. If there's concerns about that, I still think he's a day 2 late second round guy, just because he will help anyone he goes to, but certain teams may be able to make better usage of him in their scheme versus others. So some of it's going to be schematic and also need. So I think that would hurt him in terms of his draft stats. But as far as talent goes, I concur. This is a very, very talented football player, and the proof's on tape and in the statistics. So he's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. But lots of like with Tyke Smith, no question. Let's talk about our top 6 prospects before we get to those dark horses, Coach. We go to Washington State, Wazoo.
Over at Wazoo, we're going to go to Pullman, Washington for our number 6 prospect on the safety big board. Jaden Hicks, 6'3", 212-pounder out of Washington State. And he's a redshirt sophomore, so he was redshirted within his first 3 years, and really only has 2 full years of true experience on the field. Las Vegas native and a Bishop Gorman alum, so he played high stakes, high caliber high school football, national level high school football. They tour the country, that program does. So he played big time football starting at around the age of 14, 15 years old. He's an all Pac-12 selection for the Cougars, 15 career QB pressures. So we're talking about a guy that can be used on the blitz. We're talking about a guy that can be used on the blitz. And a couple of these other prospects are very, very adept at being good blitzers as well. Tyler Newbin is an outstanding blitzer. Cameron Kitchens has shown great proclivity to blitz. This guy is an outstanding blitzer, Jaden Hicks. 4 career sacks. So he's hit home 4 times, which is a safety. That's a decent number, because that's not what you typically are doing as a safety. 155 career tackles, 8 career tackles for loss. So we're seeing, you can see, you're kind of getting the idea. He plays up in the box, and he's coming up into the fray a lot. And that's the type of football player Jaden Hicks is. Still 13 career PBUs and 3 career picks, so he still can play back into the shell as well. But a real diverse safety prospect in Jaden Hicks out of Washington State.
Yeah, and I may have jumped the gun on the Tracy Walker thing, because Hicks really fits the bill too, in terms of his size and the way he plays the game. And yeah, I love the physicality. Talk about what else you like about him, Coach.
He's a real, like we said, he's a physical downhill player. He's up into the edge. He can set a good edge, which I know at the NFL level and major college level, obviously, they do that with safeties. You know, where he can become that 5th or 4th defensive almost lineman at times when we see we're outside perimeter run. He's excellent. He's a very disruptive blitzer, as his statistics and career statistics say. Excellent at blitzing. He matches up real well with bigger receivers and tight ends. He's a big, tall kid at 6'3", 215. Real solid closer, Drew. He's got great closing speed and comes up, that plays downhill really well. Very smooth ball tracker. So we're talking about a guy, if he's playing some deep safety too, he looks good at tracking the football. Very intriguing prospect. This is a good football player, my friend.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I haven't seen as much tape on him as you have, and but I like what I've seen. And I'm curious with that skill set and those physical traits, what he needs to work on. And you've done a lot of work on him. What are you seeing?
Well, I see a guy when he's able to play more of that slot alignment or in the box as a strong safety and play up, he's much more comfortable. He triggers faster. He gets involved in the fray. Real comfortable and confident playing the run and playing the flat, which, you can devise defenses, or there's roles within a defense that a defensive back needs to be able to do that. I think Jaden Hicks jumps in and does that really, really well. When he's backed out playing deep, he has a little bit of a late trigger. And, you can see where watching on film, he'll leave the frame because, the frame's back, in just like your typical TV frame, more of the line play focused on the quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's backed out and the play's happening. I'm looking for 25 to reappear, looking for 25 to reappear, looking for 25 to reappear. And he's not reappearing. He's staying backed out a little bit. And he's doing that to trigger and process, and he's concerned about getting beat deep and having the top off the defense snapped off. So in that way, that's great, but he's really covering something that he's not confident in. And we need to see the anticipation skills and those things kind of develop, because he's not as anticipatory as some of the other prospects. He waits a little long. And for a guy his frame, those ball skills are going to be in need of some work too. And there's some evidence of that. He doesn't really, not a high point guy. And at that frame, he should be able to do that probably a little better than he does.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you talk about Hicks, he's a very good football player. Probably a bit of a work in progress in that sense, the way you broke that down, but what value that would be on day two. Probably late second round, maybe is as high as he's going, but he's definitely not. I couldn't imagine he's not going to be drafted on day two. And with that, I could see defensive coordinators salivating at the opportunity to get a prospect like Hicks in there and to do something with their defense. So very, very interesting to see. Let's talk about our dark horses, Coach. I'm going to start with one of your guys. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, well, and this is the guy that is our seventh safety on our big board. But we're going to talk about him as a dark horse because we're not exactly sure where he aligns. But one of a couple of safeties out of the University of Utah that are likely to be drafted. This is Cole Bishop, 6'1", 209-pound junior out of the University of Utah. He's comes from Utah, from Peachtree City, Georgia. And I was like, well, okay, where did he transfer from? Vanderbilt or something? No. He went to the University of Utah right out of high school. 3-star recruit, 3-time All Pac-12 selection.
Ooh.
So he got on the field right away, and he's a 2-time All-American. Dynamic player. This guy that responded. No 3-star performance. He had 5-star performance right away at a high-level college. 197 career tackles. 21.5 career tackles for loss, 7.5 career sacks. So what does this guy do well, Drew? He blitzes.
Yep.
And he is a blitzing, this guy is one good blitzer, that's for sure. Still had 14 career PBUs, 4 career fumble recoveries, and 3 picks. So he was always around the football. There's a ton of clips of him doing so, and you see him in the backfield a lot. Guy that is very confident coming downhill. An elite blitzer, very fluid mover, very, very competent moving forward and getting downhill north and south within your defense. He has the speed to be a man cover DB. He can get on a slot and turn his hips and run with a guy. And that's intriguing to see. Very strong ball skills, good ball tracker. So if he's on that deep end, he's going to be able to keep the cap on the defense and make plays on the football as well. He's instinctive and anticipatory, as his tackles indicate, his career tackle numbers indicate. Lots to like in that regard. There are some instances where he looks what they refer to as a waist bender. And that's a guy that might lack sometimes a little bit of knee and hip flexibility. And the more dynamic you can move in this game, especially in this day and age, the better football player you're going to be. if he bends at the waist a little bit, that means if he could fall for a fake. If he misses and guesses wrong or anticipates wrong or reads wrong, it is going to be very difficult for him to recover. He kind of goes for the hit more than he goes for the tackle. Is something that I've kind of noticed. There are some players in this group that probably are a little more sure tacklers. I think Tyke Smith, for as aggressive as he tries to come up and play, fires guns and wraps better. Sometimes Cole Bishop is going for the hit before the tackle, and that's going to cause some problems for him and some misses. And you know what? He isn't the greatest tackler in this draft. That's something that's going to push him down the board a little bit. But man, does this kid bring some skills to the table, Drew, and a guy that really you're going to see him make some big plays in NFL football games.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. The tackling issues are going to affect his draft status, but what he can bring to the table is going to be very valuable to whoever gets him. And yeah, absolutely, really like Cole Bishop, and so impressive his career at Utah. So you hope to see it continue in the NFL, and it certainly will. I've been excited to talk about this guy, since we started, Coach James Williams out of the University of Miami, and I mean, just 6'5", 230 pounds. So immediately I think of Kyle Hamilton out of Baltimore, who came out of Notre Dame a couple years ago. And you got to love size and speed. And anytime you can have both, it's a beautiful thing. This is a Fort Lauderdale native, so he didn't travel too far, but he's a 5-star recruit. So very well thought of, all ACC player, 162 career tackles. He's a junior. 17 career pass breakups and 4 career interceptions. Again, pretty solid statistics for a safety. His strengths. Well, he will be experimented with becoming a hybrid safety linebacker. And this is what intrigues me about him. Much like Hamilton, he's got the size to be able to play at the second level and be very disruptive too. And he is a dangerous and disruptive blitzer. So for that alone, I mean, as a Lions fan, you think of Melifonwu right away. Coach, you and I probably think of a Benny Blades type player, and he happened to attend the University of Miami as well. So we like that. And Benny Blades played that type of game, and he was about 6'3", 235. So you see those possibilities here with James Williams. Great body control and can play on the deep end. So wow, not only can he blitz, not only can he play at the second level, but he's also pretty good in deep coverage. He's great tackle and ball radius. He's got length. He's tall and a fluid mover. He can cover the slot receivers and outside receivers too. So, I mean, when I see all that, I'm thinking, wow, why the heck is this guy not in the top 10? There's some things to work on, and he's not necessarily a twitchy or explosive athlete. Very good athlete, strong athlete, has good speed, but not an elite level per se. Is he too position versatile? So, and we talked about that we talked about Kinchins being, I mentioned he's a jack of all trades, but he's very good at everything. Where, James Williams has to prove, is he very good at everything, or is he just really good at one thing or a couple things? That's what's going to have to come out with more film study, the interviews, and the combine, of course. You'll see, he's not that twitchy, but what is he? Let's put him through some drills. Let's see for ourselves. Combine, pro day. Needs to improve as a processor and communicator. And when we mentioned the position versatility, we talk about like an Isaiah Simmons type guy who was drafted a few years back, who was a core linebacker, but had the ability to drop back in coverage very easily too. There's a lot of questions about James Williams, Coach, but the physical traits are what just, you're going to basically, as far as when I see James Williams, it's like, you got to prove to me he can't do it, because what I see is he can do it and he can be effective. What are your thoughts?
Yes. I mean, I see this player that's a move around the front, move around the defensive alignment type player. I mean, you look at, what he does well, could, especially on passing downs, he be one of the 2 linebackers the Lions have out there? Absolutely. Is he a guy that can play the slot corner position? Sounds like it. Is he a guy that can play up top and still be effective as a blitzer and be able to keep the cap on the defense? Sounds like he can. Is he a guy that is probably a very, very intriguing, gets better as he develops as a pro, strong safety type player, 100%. I mean, for me, James Williams is befitting of a Detroit Lion type consideration. I just really like these kinds of prospects, guys that are considered, as a high school coach, we need position versatile players. We need two-way position versatile players.
Yeah.
And to see guys that are this versatile are intriguing. Is he two position versatile? Well, I mean, Isaiah Simmons, it seems like he's failed to really fit in to a role. It's been a difficult thing for him. Are there other players that are better examples of that? Well, James Williams is one of these guys that could redefine that so to speak, if they really turn out. I'm super intrigued by him too, Drew.
Yeah, lot to like there, definitely. Let's talk about our next dark horse candidate, Coach. Who you got?
Beau Braid out of the University of Maryland, 5'11", 208-pound senior, great Big Ten prospect. Out of the state of Maryland, from Clarksville, Maryland. He's a two-time All Big Ten selection, team captain this past year for Mike Loxley and the Maryland Terrapins. 177 career tackles, 14 career pass breakups, and 3 picks. Real fluid athletic movement. He's very trained, very skilled, and his athletic ability is honed within those skills. Strong, aggressive tackler, real good tackler. So made it real easy for me. I remember watching him play against Michigan and Michigan State a few times, and just being impressed with his physicality out there, knowing him as number 2, and then getting to know him a little bit more as Beau Braid, doing some film study, more and more examples of that as a tackler. Great closing straight line speed. That ends, he can play on the deep end, and he gets into the fray as a run defender. So there's a lot to like there as well. Hard charging kid. Real hard charging kid, very physical in that regard. Very good at recognizing wide receiver combos. Mike Loxley is, they call him the play caller or whatever down there at Maryland. They have and they ran a dynamic air raid style offense there. So they're scout team D, and sometimes they put the starting type guys out there to bring the intensity and the competitive level up a little bit. They get better that way too, and really being able to anticipate route combos, and he can do that within wide receivers pretty well and disrupt passing lanes and windows. Got impressive ball skills, makes a lot of plays on the ball, and at 5'11", 208, he's right in that size frame to where it's acceptable size to be a real impact player if you have those kind of skills. Not a great zone football player. He's more of a man guy, and that's okay. That's okay. That means he's going to be a little bit more scheme specific. There's going to be some programs and some franchises, the way they're playing football now, that are not going to be all that interested in his services because he can be a little bit impatient and unconfident when he's playing zone. He's given up some deep balls. And I'm guessing that's been at times when he's been transitioning from a lot of man and press man to a zone responsibility. So that's, I'm guessing where some of his snafus take place. But that's something that's got to be corrected. And, at the NFL level, there's some pretty dynamic blockers, some offensive linemen that can move like tight ends and like wide receivers to a certain degree. And once they're on you, you're done for. And also a good wide receiver, good tight end, a good blockers, you're done for. And we got to make sure that he doesn't let hands get into his body. Got to fight hands a little bit and get over the top. Seen him engage in some battles that way on film. Don't want to do that at the NFL level. You're going to take yourself out that way.
Now, great breakdown. Lots to like about Beau Braid. Certainly I got to see him too at Maryland in the Big Ten here, obviously, and wow, just lot to like. Certainly could be a third round guy, but I think he's day 3. But I think he's got great value day 3 for sure, and starting capability, no question. So this is the kind of guy you want to get in those spots. I mean, it's just, he could really help your team out. He's not one of the higher profile guys on the list, obviously, but at the same time could become just as effective as anyone on the sport. So yeah, definitely like Braid a lot, Coach. Malik Mustafa out of Wake Forest, and this guy caught my eye, Coach. And the reason why mostly is because he's just gotten better every year. Every year he's gotten better, and it shows on tape. He's from Charlotte, North Carolina. He transferred from Richmond. Best known, the Spiders better known for their basketball program, but and we certainly remember them in the tournament. But Mustafa transferred from Richmond to Wake Forest, all ACC, 189 career tackles, 15 career TFLs, 4 career stacks, 11 career pass breakups. I mean, when you get the 15 career tackles for loss, that's huge. That's huge. And we talked about that earlier. That's a good number for a safety. That means he's aggressive and can pursue the run. He's also good at blitzing. So it's a good thing. 3 career interceptions. Phenomenal athlete. And this is another thing that caught our eye. And Coach, you found this. To be able to achieve the 1,300 pound, being that club for the 3 lift total of the bench, squat, and clean, that's a strong athlete. This is a 5'9", 210 pound, pretty rocked up safety here. He's an attacker. He attacks blocks and tackles. You got to like that aggressiveness and his strength. Coverage scheme versatile. That's a beautiful thing too. So he's good in zone. He's good in man. He's good against the run. He's good against the pass. So he's pretty solid everywhere. Explosive dynamic movement skills. So he's got the physical ability to really make it happen back there. And he's shown that. A punishing closer. Good effective tackler, very good ball skills. So what does he need to work on? Well, he's had some issues getting beat deep. And so that's when you're that aggressive, that's going to happen. I guess the question becomes, is it because you're too aggressive and you're missing something, or is it just that what you were called upon to do? I'm not sure. That's going to come out in the wash, so to speak. Much more effective in the box than on the deep end. And you can see that through his statistics, where his wheelhouse is, and it's playing in the box for sure. Seems to struggle in coverage the further you go downfield. So not the greatest deep downfield coverage guy, but outstanding against the run, outstanding blitzer. A lot to like about Mustafa. What are your thoughts, Coach?
Yeah, this is a guy that's a little bit more scheme specific or alignment specific. A sub-package guy, maybe a sub-package starter rather early. He's a core special teams player, a rotating box safety, but a high caliber rotating box safety, maybe a starting box safety sooner rather than later. Strong as all get out, man. 1,300 pound, 3 lift total. That's typically done by like offensive tackles and defensive linemen and stuff like that. 1,300 pounds, 1,000 is an outstanding. That's kind of where the bar is set. If you can have a 3 lift total of 1,000, you're a person that lifts weights. You're pretty competitive in the weight room. If you're a person that can get to 1,100, whoa, you're doing something pretty special in that weight room. When you're doing 1,200, you are very, very strong human being. 1,300, I mean, you are elite in multiple categories in your lifts. So that's just intriguing that this kid is that strong. I'm excited to see where he lands.
Yeah, I could see day 3, round 4. If he slipped to round 5, I would think there'd be teams just waiting to grab him. I can't see him going further back than that. And again, I may be undervaluing where he's going to go, but I think the question marks will drop him down, and not being seen as maybe an immediate impact starter, and being, like to your point, Coach, scheme specific. That's gonna hurt his draft status, but not as an effective NFL football player. He's gonna be a good football player. Let's talk about the next guy we got here, and our dark horse here out of Oregon State, Coach.
Another one of Jonathan Smith's Oregon State Beavers, now the head coach at Michigan State University, SPP safety dark horse, Kaiton Oladapo. From, as we said, from Oregon State University down over there in Corvallis, Oregon, 6'2", 219-pound senior, so more of a bigger, bulkier body here, out of Happy Valley, Oregon. 2-time All Pac-12 selection, 248 career tackles. Those are linebacker-like numbers. This guy has secured some tackles for the Oregon State Beavers and played a lot of football. You don't get to 248 tackles without being able to say that. 15.5 career tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. So again, another blitzing type safety, showing a very, very good proclivity to hit home as a blitzing safety. 27 career pass breakups. So he's really been effective, played a lot of football for the Beavs, 3 career picks. Very productive and good tackler. He's going to prove that also in the special teams game. That's why Kite Oldable really does bring some value to his draft stock, just based off of the body of work he produced at Oregon State. Excellent zone defender. Where we talk about some guys that are maybe not as adept in zone defense, he's an outstanding zone defender. That's what he primarily did at Oregon State. So as a man cover guy, well, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But as a man or as a zone defender, outstanding. One of the better safeties in the draft. He's aggressive yet comfortable in space, which you kind of have to be that as a zone guy. You kind of have to have this kind of inner clock that you work off of. And once that clock, like really it's like an alarm clock, goes off like a timer, boom, you trigger on something. You're not waiting anymore. You're triggering. And he's obviously, he proves that. You can see it. He gets back up into the frame real quickly. Big NFL size frame at 6'2", 219. Going to be able to cover tight ends. That shouldn't be a problem. He's got really good movement skills. He's very fluid and athletic. Really good prospect in that regard. His man skills need some work. And that's going to make him unattractive to some defensive coordinators and some franchises because they're man cover exclusive type teams. Not his thing. Doesn't always process what he sees either, which means he might be playing, and that might be something that could have been done with his DC at Oregon State, where they wanted him to really be concerned about certain things and that he's not even worried about other things. So we're not so sure if that's necessarily a red flag for him, but it does appear sometimes he processes things a little differently than he should. And he needs to refine himself as a man cover player and as a tackler, because you know what? You had 248 career tackles at Oregon State. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to rattle off 248 tackles in 4 years in the NFL. So that's going to have to get better, and he's going to have to learn to play some man coverage when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think, and that's the big question mark, and that, quite frankly, in my mind, is the only thing holding him back from being a day 2 guy, because physically he's a total package, man. That's what you want. But yeah, that will hurt his draft stock. But he will find a home in the NFL for sure. It's just a matter of where in the, how that shakes out for him in the draft. He's going to have to show a lot of people that he's got the physical ability to understand and get better at that. But like you said, Coach, maybe there's the right scheme there where he won't be called upon for that necessarily. He's good at other things. Really like him a lot. Good selection there. The last dark horse we have here, and we talked about him right at the first slide, Jalen Simpson out of Auburn, 5'11", 178-pound senior. He's out of Brunswick, Georgia. He was a 4-star recruit. Now, I do like his speed, a 4.43 340. That's good speed there. And he's a dual role DB. So again, there's some versatility there. We've listed him as a DB, so he can play multiple positions. Very, very attractive to a lot of teams, i.e. the Lions, and probably 31 others. But he's all SEC player, all American, 116 career tackles, 21 career pass breakups, which is good to see, and 7 career picks. So you can see he's got a little bit of a nose for the football. And he can play, as part of his strengths, that being position versatile. He can play safety and nickel corner and regular corner. So that's huge. Now, where's he best? Well, we'll find out, and there could be, it depends on what team gets him. They may have a bigger need at nickel versus outside corner, whatever the case is. As an example, Lions fans, Brian Branch, he became pretty much a nickel corner. And his skill set was similar. He could play all around. Now, comparing the two, because the physicality of Branch brings a different player, but that kind of versatility we've been talking about, and we'll talk about in almost every draft class, probably except for quarterback. We want to make sure that they can throw the football, certainly. But other than that, I mean, the more versatile you can be, it's a feather in your cap. He's fluid with his movement skills and physical presence to cover both receivers and tight ends. So you got to like that. Good underneath coverage presence. So again, you can see he's a bit of a ball hawk, and he finds a football. He plays longer than his height indicates, so that's a good thing. He's got a little more length, probably more coach more like 6'1", 6'2" length, which is a good thing because he's 5'11", and he has strong physical hands. So he's good at the point of contact. He can be good if he has to press in man coverage at the line. You got to have that. So what does he need to work on? Well, he can be a little stiff at times. So with that speed and his size, you'd like to see a little more fluidity. So he's a little stiff on tape at times. He will benefit greatly from having an outstanding couple workouts. He's had a lot of issues with holding and PI. So here's where that strong hands can be an issue, because if you rely on that too much and your defender can move out, or excuse me, the offensive player moves outside of your grip radius, you're going to get a yellow flag every time. So it's got to be careful of that. He does gamble at the point of attack. So a little bit of a feast or famine type guy. He's going to try and make a big play. He can get burned on that. So it's something you got to be cognizant of, certainly. And it does rely too often on the all or nothing mentality. Not every play is not going to be a pick six. Every play is not going to be a 5-yard loss. And, oh, by the way, forced fumble recovery for a touchdown. And of course, everyone tries to make a big play on every play because every play counts, right, Coach? But sometimes you have to have some restraint. So I think it's a matter of can a DC or a head coach or GM think we can coach this out of this prospect? So he's interesting because he could fall back to round 5. He could go into round 3, but it depends on how he's viewed in the scheme specific of that team and need. But he has the athletic ability to be a very good football player and be a possible late day 2 guy. But I see him more as a day 3 guy. But I do like Jalen Simpson, Coach.
That position versatility is just, I mean, that's where it's at. I mean, that's going to get him drafted. And, he has 4.43 speed. He's got corner speed. He's pushing 4.4, low 4.4s. You've got that trigger. And like you said, he plays longer kind of than he does at 5'11". He's got real powerful poppy hands, which is going to make him good on the run. There's so much to like about this kid. And, I think some of his woes with PI and stuff, they move him around the defensive alignment so much that, you process when you're outside, you're inside, outside, inside. You end up triggering a little bit differently sometimes. And maybe you get a little clutchy and grabby just because you're playing so fast, you're processing so fast. So, that would slow down likely for him. You mentioned that with Brian Branch and how we used him in versatile ways, but mainly he, lined as a nickel corner now. That'll likely happen for Jalen Simpson too. So there's definitely a role for him in this league. That is 100% sure.
Wow. So Coach, great coverage, great job of scouting these guys. Appreciate it as always. But man, I tell you what, I do feel a lot better about this position group than I did. I didn't view it initially back in late December, early January as a group that was going to have a lot to offer, but it really does. It's not star-studded, but it's rock solid. Your thoughts before we close it out?
Yeah, and I do think we talked about a Detroit Lion today. I'm not sure which one of these prospects are. There's several of them that I think are befitting of being a Detroit Lion, but I think we talked between those 6 dark horses and those 6 ranked players that we definitely have a Detroit Lion to talk about here. They're very physical, a lot of dynamic athleticism. Some guys are a little bit better at playing the deep half than others. Some guys are a little bit better in the box than others. Some guys are a little bit better processors and communicators than others. Some are a little bit better at man. Some are a little bit better zone. So lots to look at. Some guys that are more scheme and position versatile and alignment versatile than others. So there's a lot of different things to take into effect. But I think we have talked about and have ranked, some guys that are of an intrigue, and we'll likely see here and definitely throughout the league.
Yeah, like you mentioned the lines, just to wrap this up, if it came down to I've got a corner I like and I've got a safety I like, but this safety can play nickel corner too, that's a big positive bargaining chip there. Say, I want that versatility. And that's what it's going to come down to. Because I know the Lions' need is at corner, but there's always room for good football players. There'll always be a spot, and teams are going to make it happen. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting draft, no question. Folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Remember, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, give us your comments. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you want to see more of anything or less of something. Let us know. But we really appreciate you watching and for supporting us. For Coach Andy Shield of the Marine City Mariners, my name is Drew. Take care, everybody. We will talk to you soon. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and for your support. Remember, when you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.